Cup North America Series, rolling out of pit lane. And about 28 cars starting this race this morning. Fog around the Austin, Texas circuit. You can see it there, quite thick as the cars lead up to turn one. But 28 cars taking the start of this race. And some of the headlights ablaze on these Radical machines. Visibility at the level of the circuit on the surface, not too bad, but certainly thick fog in the area and quite uncanny for what has been a very, very hot weekend. Humidity high though, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays a role in today's race. Certainly the drivers enjoying the reprieve, cooler conditions this morning. And we are just expecting one formation lap. On the pole, it will be Steve Jenks. He was extremely quick in yesterday's race. Had a little issue early on in the race. He said he actually flipped on the pit lane speed limiter. And for those who are watching, we actually saw the rain light flicker on momentarily. And that's what that was. Another gremlin settled in a little bit later and undid a whole lot of hard work for Steve Jenks. But in the middle of all of that, he did set the fastest lap of the race. And again, we'll start from the pole position and indeed the class pole in Platinum. Alongside him, yesterday's race winner John Field for One Motorsports. Starting position 3, look out for Robert Rossi in the 611 Wisco machine. He was extremely quick and has been all year. Judd Miller for S's Racing Radical Texas will start alongside him in 4th. And then it's the first of the 1500s, Gustavo Rafols, the number 28 machine, in a league of his own yesterday. And was so much quicker than everyone else in Pro 1500. Jason Plotke and Jim Booth, 6th and 7th, they start on the grid and were nose to tail all of yesterday. Elaine Dursey qualified, if you will, second fastest in yesterday's race in the Pro 1500, and he'll start 8th. It should be a good battle between Elaine Dursey, Greg Gorski and Aurora Strauss. Gorski and Strauss making up the 5th row of the grid. And Aurora looking for a breakthrough win after taking 4 podiums for 4 starts in the Blue Marble Radical Cup. Gorski making an impressive return to the series yesterday. And we're back to the Platinum Class SR10 of Scott Wagner. Chris McMurray was the fastest of the Pro 1340s, starting in 12th. Austin Riley and Mike Anzaldi on the next row. And that row, the car 20 and car number 1, will be ones to watch. They are vying for the championship in Pro 1340. Then we're back to David Albin, David Flint, Mark Allen, Kent Myers, Vince Switzer, Ben Blander, Dan Decker, Richard Girosha, Hugh Leahy, Evan Wolf, and Jason Greenwood and Palmer Miller. So the cars side by side, the formation looking good as they come around the final turn. The Formula One build extremely excessive this year for a big crowd. The cars are coming down this very foggy main straight. Little bit of... it's got a green flag though, but the formation by the time they got to it, 3 and 4 wide already, and you can see back in the field the headlights. Almost 5 wide there as they go into turn 1. And Elaine Dursey around the outside looking good. Dan Decker also in the mix there. And Palmer Miller already making up a couple of places. Palmer Miller and for that matter, Reed Stewart starting at the back of the grid. And unbelievable, the fog, as I say, down at the level of the circuit. it's not that bad, and drivers certainly don't have what we have to contend with on screen. But we're just waiting to pick up the field here. We'll see who comes out ahead. So it's Robert Rossi who has done so in the 6-1-1. That's perfect for his championship. And Robert Rossi, after yesterday's performance, will be pretty happy with that fantastic start. Steve Jenks relegated to second at the start there. We don't see where John Field was in the 37 machine. And did just pick up Mike Anzaldi in the Pro 1340 class. But John Field looks like he's been relegated to 4th position. Judd Miller also in the mix, 3rd overall at the moment. Robert Rossi, who was under the weather a little bit yesterday, certainly is full focus and full steam ahead today, extending a decent lead as Steve Jenks runs wide. A little bit of an unforced error there, and in the same position that Jenks got ahead of Judd Miller. Judd Miller goes around the outside there into the carousel, and John Field trying to get past Steve Jenks, and Field has spun it around in turn 19. Running wide is, that looks like Elaine Dursey with Aurora Strauss behind him, and interestingly enough, Dursey is still in the lead. Oh, sorry, coming second in 1500. Of course, Gustavo Raffles is, there he is, coming through screen and in a league of his own. And Gorski goes for a move on Aurora Strauss, who does finally relinquish the place. And now Gorski will go and try and get ahead of his fellow Spring Mountain member, Elaine Dursey, in a great battle in 1340 as well as unfolding. It looked like Chris McMurray is in the lead from Mike Anzaldi, but David Flint was right in the mix there, and in fact Flint may have got past Mike Anzaldi into the S's. Austin Riley falling a little bit back, getting mixed up with a couple of the 1500 cars. Kent Myers is in the thick of the Pro 1340 battle. David Albin also in there. Palmer Miller already making his way up to 18th overall from the back of the grid. Certainly on for the Sunoco Hard Charger Award. And just like he was yesterday, Judd Miller early on in 2nd position. Steve Jenks 3rd now after nearly getting collected by John Field as he aggressively tried to come through in turn 19. And there's the battle for 2nd in Pro 1500. Elaine Dursey with a very racy Greg Gorski behind, and Aurora Strauss, I think, just watching and waiting. Looks like the two ahead are definitely fighting, and Aurora could capitalize through here. Side by side around the carousel. We'll see how that unfolds. At the moment, each of the drivers giving each other room, and Gorski in the Cock Oil machine making the move stick, and Aurora Strauss, can she have a look into the final corner? Dursey comes across to defend. As someone goes really wide, I think that might be John Field on the road to recovery. Still a battle unfolding here. So as Scott Wagner in the SR10 comes up behind this battle for 2nd in 1500, and wide goes David Flint. David Flint, who's again just in the middle of that Pro 1340 battle. And Chris McMurray in the lead from Mike Anzaldi. Anzaldi critically ahead of championship rival Austin Riley, who actually, he's sitting 3rd in class at the moment. But David Albin in the 349 machine another Wisco Racing entrant. It's doing very, very well this weekend. As you can see, a running race in the background there at COTA. Always lots going on at Circuit of the Americas. Big concert here on Wednesday night as we were setting up. And Raffol's just, you could see the car squirming and sliding under brakes there. It's interesting how early Raffol's is turning in. He gets the car rotated quickly. And whilst others seem to be using all of the track allotted by the race director, Todd Snyder, Raffol's just seems to always have that car pointed down the racetrack and is able to get on the power early, keep the road speed up as well. And he has just been outstanding in the Pro 1500 class. There, there's the 1340s, and you can see the white and yellow car of Chris McMurray from Apex Country Club. Chris McMurray, 4 cars back in that pack. And McMurray now with Austin Riley behind him, it would appear. So what's happened to Mike Anzaldi? He's coming into pit lane. So this has huge championship implications for Mike Anzaldi. Anzaldi in the points lead was leading the championship by 3 points coming into COTA. Had another 5 points added to his tally in comparison to Austin Riley. But now Austin is in the box seat, and this is absolute disaster for Mike Anzaldi, who's still in pit lane. Some issue with the number 1 machine. He has to get back out there. Of course, he will gain starters points, but he can't afford to go too far down in terms of the points. So what started as a rough weekend for Austin Riley, the reigning Canadian champion, has turned into heartache for Anzaldi and a bit of a windfall for the young Canadian, because he is going to take a huge points haul away from this race, and certainly in comparison to Mike Anzaldi. Of course, they're not just fighting for class championships either. There's 3 classes in the Blue Marble Radical Cup. Platinum, which is distinguished by the yellow. The red on the rear wing is 1500, and Palmer Miller sporting those colours as he battles past Kent Myers in the 99 machine. And then, of course, the green on the Pro 1340s. But whilst they're all duking out for their individual class championships, an outright prize is also determined, and that's a ride in England with the Factory Radical team. And last year's outright champion, Gustavo Raffol's, just raced in Silverstone a few weeks ago for his efforts in last year's Blue Marble Radical Cup. So at the front of this train is David Flint, approaching turn 1. Behind him, Palmer Miller, who's moved well up through the field. Then we're with Kent Myers in the 99. You can see the Platinum class car there of, well, that would be the man that started second, John Field. And then we're back into the thick of 1340. So the lap time's coming down. Judd Miller's just done a 2:09.2. And that man on screen, Greg Gorski, lapping in the 13s at the moment, some 2 seconds off Gustavo Raffol's best at a 1:11. In fact, Gustavo's with a 1:11 flat, very much in the lap times of many of the Platinum class cars, as it looks like Robert Rossi has slowed. So Robert Rossi, what has happened here to the 611. Robert Rossi, who was leading this race, is slowing on the racetrack, and you can see Sparks. He's gone over a curb, I think, and the rear diffuser has become dislodged on the 611 machine. Now, he is well ahead in points in the championship, but like Mike Anzaldi, it's all coming unstuck. And the rear diffuser on the 611 Wisco machine is flapping around furiously on the SR10. And you can see he's in pit lane now. Wow. We'll talk about mixed fortunes. Steve Jenks, of course, who had a tough day yesterday, is second, and Judd Miller, the hometown hero, is now first at COTA, as they're still working on Mike Anzaldi's car. The Rhino Racing team in pit lane, and now Wisco Racing ready to accept Robert Rossi. This is not the stop, not the race rather, with the mandatory pit stops. This is a true sprint race. And as Palmer Miller comes through, still with a strong battle there in 1500 class. See, Kent Myers and Palmer Miller have got ahead of David Flint, but Flint very much still hanging on to the back of Myers, who cut through the chicane there, or the S's. The rule this weekend is that you can use the curbing, the candy stripes, and you can have one wheel on those candy stripes, and Greg Gorski giving us a little bit of example of using the full limits of the circuit. So we pick up the new race leader and the platinum class leader, the 64 of Judd Miller, who I must say seemed a little bit off the pace in yesterday's qualifying, seemed to come back with a vengeance in race one. Second in class, and now has certainly found his rhythm. Steve Jenks was also impressive in yesterday's race with the pace, and as we mentioned, converted that pace into the pole position for this race, but so far a little bit of a slow start relegated him to second, and for whatever reason he just hasn't found the rhythm that he had yesterday. See some of the turtles and the additional curbing around the racetrack here at COTA to deter people as David Flint goes round. OPMT Racing, and that's out of turn 15. The double apex corner, quite a challenging area of the circuit, very, very technical, easy to pick up some understeer. So our order at the moment, Judd Miller in the 64 for S's Racing, Radical Texas, in front of family and friends at his home racetrack, Circuit of the Americas, doing the business from Steve Jenks, who's just set his fastest lap, a 2:09.7, and indeed it's the faster than what Judd Miller's circulating at the moment, only by a few 100ths of a second. Jason Plotke is set for a podium, or certainly set at the moment for a podium in Platinum in his first race in the SR10s. Behind him, Jim Booth. Solid performance in fourth. Gustavo Raffol's leading Pro 1500 from Greg Gorski, Elaine Dursey, and Aurora Strauss is the top four in that class. Then we're back to John Field, who's still working his way up from that spin after trying to get past Steve Jenks in turn 19. Elaine Dursey is 7th overall. Sorry, we're back to John Field. Scott Wagner, rather, is behind John Field, who's come up from the back of the grid. Palmer Miller in 11th overall in Pro 1500, ahead of teammate Kent Myers, and was just ahead of David Albon before that spin. Out of the pits comes Mike Anzaldi. What frustration for the championship leader Anzaldi's been having a fantastic battle all year long with Austin Riley from Canada. And look at the lead that Gustavo Raffles has over the rest of the 1500s. A huge amount of track between him and Greg Gorski, who should come through. There he is. So Gorski has pulled out as well from Elaine Dursey and Aurora Strauss. So the top three in 1500 starting to settle in, if you will. Palmer Miller with an amazing drive so far. As on screen, the 119 of Jason Plotke. Nickname on the side of his car, Stinky Pinky. Not sure what that's quite referring to. Hopefully just the livery. But Plotke, fantastic in these SR10s, using the SimCraft simulator to get up to speed. He said it was amazing to be able to drive the SR10 on iRacing at Circuit of the Americas to really get himself up to speed and settle into the racetrack quickly, and is certainly still improving. The lap times coming down further and further as each session has progressed. And a lot of people watching on from Arizona. Shout out to all those folks. It's very early in the morning. Big shout out too to everyone that's been racing at Donington, the final round of the Radical Challenge Championship and SR1 Cup as well. And some fantastic performances. James Lay, young Dougie Bolger as well. And great performances in SR1. So many cars racing around the world in Radical. Radical really is the only other manufacturer outside of Porsche, Ferrari and Lamborghini to have Cup Series on multiple continents. And it gives all of our drivers the opportunity to tick off the bucket list, whether that's in the home country or from afar. And whether it's Bathurst in Australia, places like Silverstone, Sebring, Circuit of the Americas, of course. Come around, go around the world and race Radical racing cars, and we're looking forward to the culmination of a big year of Radical racing at Spring Mountain, November 8 through 13. Las Vegas is the host city for the first Radical World Finals event. And it's just been announced that Caesars Palace will be base camp for the week. So plenty of fun to be had on the strip, and then out to Charleston Peak at Spring Mountain Country Club for racing. And that circuit, a brand new one, so a very level playing field for everyone coming across from North America and indeed the world. We expect multiple champions, past and present, to take part in that event. Should be the biggest collection ever of Radical cars ever assembled. And looking for the likes of young Gustavo Raffles to show his might against some of the best in the world. He certainly showed his might and showed the pace of the American Radical racers against the best in the UK a few weeks ago at Silverstone. And Raffles really impressed out of the box. Brand new circuit, different seating position, driving on the right-hand side instead of the left. And adapted to everything extremely well. Was ultra fast in qualifying. In fact, led one of the qualifying sessions for most of it until the final moments. Was a little bit unlucky in the races, got squeezed out in turn one. Bit of a hip and shoulder from both sides, left the alignment less than desirable, and still campaigned extremely strong. And you can see the pace that he has. A 111 flat is his best, over a second faster than everyone else in Pro 1500. Set a new qualifying lap record this weekend. And over the last 12 to 18 months, Gustavo Raffles has just evolved as a driver. He had to sit out COVID in his home of Puerto Rico, couldn't make the trek across to the mainland to take part in the Blue Marble Radical Cup. Excruciating year for him. Came back with a vengeance last year, cleaned everyone's clock, won the championship. Very impressive season from Gustavo after a year on the sidelines. That pent-up energy, if you will, being put to full effect, and seems to, that confidence has grown in him with every lap and every win that he's taken. Calmed down a little bit as a driver, using his head a little bit more. Understands when to rein in the aggression. Certainly worked on setting up the car, giving outstanding feedback. In fact, that was one of the most impressive parts of his performance in England, was working with some of the top engineers in country, and the feedback that he provided was outstanding. So watch out for Gustavo Raffles in years to come. Of course, a number of drivers using the Radical Cup now as an alternative pathway into professional motorsports, rather than just sticking with the typical road to Indy ladder or the likes of F4. The Radical, of course, a true downforce car, very, very quick as well, and really allows the young guys like Gustavo Raffles, and Scott Wagner's gone for a spin in turn 15, catching a couple of people out today. But plenty of drivers coming up through the ranks. Jordan Missing making the transition from karts to Radicals and then off to the road to Indy. Christian Weir, another one who really learnt his craft in Radicals and was so dominant in Pro 1340 here last year. Making the step up as well. Over the years, lots of drivers coming through from the country club ranks as well. John Field, now regular at Le Mans and in the European Le Mans Series, won the LMP3 championship a few years ago. Started racing in Radicals, won the Blue Marble Radical Cup, and went off to Europe, and has certainly shown that you can learn the craft, learn the speed in Radicals and apply it to whatever you like, whether it's open wheel, of course prototype sports cars, or for that matter, the high-end GT cars. There is a car on the side of the track there as well. Can't pick up that. But we're following the leader in the 1340 class. Chris McMurray, who's certainly one that has had a few laps in prototypes, another American Le Mans Series driver who's come back to racing in Radical alongside John Field, and mixing it up with the likes of this young gun, Austin Riley, racing with autism, and just an outstanding young man. Not only does he obviously have to deal with a little bit more than the rest of us, but the way he applies himself in a car is unbelievable, and just seemed to take to the Radical like a duck to water. Won the Canadian Championship last year, did a couple of rounds in America, but set his sights on winning the Blue Marble Radical Cup as the next step in his evolution as a driver. Palmer Miller, who was leading the points in Pro 1500 coming into this round, another young gun who's been successfully using the Radical platform to develop his craft. And Miller, the son of Judd Miller, so another hometown hero here, and we know if he gets onto the podium, he will certainly be a crowd favourite. And just trying to keep Scott Wagner at bay. The 1500s tend to have a little bit more pace through some of the twisty stuff here at COTA. And of course the SR10s have plenty of power down the straights. Multi-class racing preparing these drivers for what's to come, perhaps in their careers. It's not just about outright speed. Of course, it's a bit of a game of chess as well. And always helpful if you can keep an out-of-class car between you and your rival. John Field has moved up to 6th overall. So he is just behind the leader in Pro 1500, Greg Gorski now. Gustavo Raffles. Greg Gorski in 2nd place, Elaine Dursey, Aurora Strauss still in 4th. And then we're back to Palmer Miller, who we're watching now. And Scott Wagner using all the power of the turbocharged 4-cylinder Ford EcoBoost in the SR10 to motor his way past, in effect, what is his teammate this weekend. Scott Wagner Racing running out of the S's Racing camp for the remainder of the season. And some very clever happenings in the paddock with a couple of the teams joining up to make sure the transport costs are kept down and the service levels kept up for their customers. But you don't need to run with a race team in the Radical Cup. You can be a privateer like Austin Riley, and he's proving the point. 2nd in the Pro 1340 class, and he's hunting down Chris McMurray now. And it seems like with every lap around this circuit, Austin Riley is finding a little bit more pace, understanding what he needs to do in the Spark Power 20 machine. And Austin picking up a number of supporters. Haggerty, Lincoln Electric as well. That stunning livery that starts with the yellow and fades to blue. And if you actually go and look at the livery, there's a number of names down on that car. I was really honoured to find my name there the other day. But Austin honouring everyone that's helped him out over the years, and there's some pretty impressive people on the livery, including Lewis Hamilton, who took a liking to Austin at one of the F1 events and spent a lot of time with young Austin, just giving him some advice and some mementos as well. And it's those moments like that when some of these young guns can realize that their heroes are in fact human, that they too can truly aspire and indeed match what their heroes can do. Judd Miller, cruise control for the 64. S's Racing Radical Texas SR10. His best time a 2:09.2. So the time's not as fast, interestingly enough. This morning, in the cooler conditions, but with this high humidity, the hand-cooked tyres and the track surface perhaps not just mating as well as they sometimes do. Of course, the humidity is probably not helping the horsepower either. But Judd Miller calmly going about his business. He's had a bit of a tougher run in the last couple of years. The competition in the Platinum class is certainly elevated, and then of course an influx of competitors with the new SR10. And Steve Jenks is still keeping him honest. He's a little bit further back, but certainly within viewing distance of the rear diffuser of the S's Racing 64 machine. So still about 10 minutes to go in this motor race. Certainly the drivers feeling the effect of the heat yesterday. They all look pretty worn out after a long day of practice, qualifying, and then race one. At the moment, Judd Miller just cruising, about a second off his fastest lap. Just not wanting to put a foot wrong, and perhaps just making sure that these thirsty SR10s get to the end of this race. We haven't seen a a yellow flag, and 40 minutes is certainly on the verge of their fuel capacity. Jason Plotke doing a nice job extending his gap over Jim Booth in the McDonald's machine. And then that looks like Richard Girosha there, out of sequence, if you will, having some of the faster cars come through. Gustavo Raffol still in the lead of Pro 1500, and then we're back to John Field, who surprisingly hasn't made much ground. Usually Field storms back up through the field. I think it shows the pace of Raffols and the front of this Platinum class. And now Aurora Strauss looking very, very racy on Elaine Dursey, who's using plenty of track. Aurora 2. Aurora with the headlights ablaze. She is trying to get up to that final step of the podium, keep her strike rate going. And she's making a move into turn 1. Dursey cuts across the front of the 17 machine. As they say, it's all fair in love and war. And Dursey certainly not making it easy, as the 349 of David Albon with some damage on the front of his car. And could this be a yellow? We've certainly got some debris on the racetrack. And definitely cars having to maneuver around that. So could this be an opportunity for the field to be closed? We'll wait and see if the safety car has stood up. Certainly doesn't look like it at this moment in time. And Albon coming into pit lane with sustained damage on the front end of his car. Blue flag out there, just indicating to Dan Decker that Steve Jenks in the 64 machine is coming through. Jenks for Alden Hearing, Group A. Showing impressive speed, typically does, but just seems to, Lady Luck, just never seems to be quite on Jenks's side. Definitely having a good, strong run today. And the blue flag's out a little more. So the front runners carving their way up through the field. John Field, speaking of Fields, has just set the fastest lap of the race at 2:09.2. So Field has taken over 5th overall from Gustavo Raffols. Perhaps he's still got his sights set on a podium finish. We'll see what he can do with just 6 minutes remaining. Field certainly with some time to make up over the next competitor, Jim Booth, who's running 4th in Platinum. And there he is. Similar car, but that's actually the 15, sporting some damage. That's Vince Switzer. And there's still a lot of debris out on the racetrack. Surprised that, in a way, that we haven't elected to go and pick that up. But of course, it's good to keep the racing green. After all, that's what we're here to do. And Vince Switzer, perhaps the other component to the David Albon equation. And Judd Miller coming up behind what was the 111 of Louis Schreiber, and it is now the 529 of Jason Greenwood. The stunning white and blue Rhino racing car. Judd Miller just making everything look easy at the front of this field. Greenwood stepping up to Platinum. He started off the back of the field. And just coming to grips with the extra horsepower. Said he was really pleased to be having this new challenge in 19th position at the moment. So Miller now has moved his way up through a third of the field. And been trying to work out who that car is stricken on the side of the racetrack. It almost looks like Mike Anzaldi, but I'll try and keep an eye out to see if Anzaldi is still circulating. Whatever has happened to Mike Anzaldi, it's been a disastrous morning for him. Leading the 1340 Championship into this race. He did not need a big points deficit to rival Austin Riley, but that is what he is going to have after this one. So we're inside 4 minutes. The 64. Judd Miller, the Stars and Bars. His son sports a livery akin to the Texas flag, Miller, with the American flag adorned on the SR10. You could see that John Field is closing in. So Steve Jenks comes through. The white flag is out for Judd Miller. So the last lap is on for Judd Miller. It's been an outstanding race for him. Steve Jenks in second. That's a great recovery for him after yesterday's race. Jason Plotke, wow, what a podium this would be for the 119 Crown Concepts Apex Motor Club driver. If he can pull off a third position in his debut weekend in the Platinum class. Jim Booth, fourth in class. Then we're back to John Field. Aurora Strauss just starting her final tour. Still stuck behind Elaine Dursey, so she's got one more lap to see if she can get back on the podium. 4 from 4 so far. See if she can make it 5 from 5. Well, it's been green flag racing for 40 minutes here at Circuit of the Americas. Judd Miller in the 64 machine goes through the penultimate corner. Now the final one. Here we go for Esses Racing. He's done it at his home track, Circuit of the Americas. Judd Miller starts weaving in celebration and takes the checker to win the Platinum class and outright here in the Blue Marble Radical Cup. The second race of the weekend. And Steve Jenks will finish second. An outstanding job for him. Jason Plotke comes to greet the checker flag, pumping his fist. Home third for Crown Concepts. Jim Booth should be the next one to cross the line in Platinum class, followed by John Field. Gustavo Raffles just took the win. And look at this. This is for the final position. And they're side by side. Aurora Strauss trying to make a move here. She doesn't quite do it. So Elaine Dursey, Aurora Strauss side by side through the final corners. And I think it will be Elaine Dursey who does get on the podium. Aurora Strauss desperately trying to keep her track record going. It won't be, because behind Gustavo Raffles and Greg Gorski, Elaine Dursey is coming over to take the final step of the Pro 1500 class. What a race it has been for those two. Wow. And Elaine Dursey appreciating the hard-fought battle with Aurora Strauss there for Monticello Motor Club. And Richard Mille watches. Gee, they had their everything out there, more than just elbows. You could see the sparks coming up underneath Aurora's car as she tried to use all the track and more. She certainly had the car on the inside, but in the end decided that perhaps finishing the race was more important than firing it down the inside of the sweeper. What a drive too for Palmer Miller. Home 5th in the Pro 1500 class. Chris McMurray taking the win in Pro 1340 from Austin Riley and Reed Stewart. An outstanding drive from Reed Stewart from the back of the grid to pick up 3rd in class. Vince Switzer home 4th in Pro 1340. Then it's Ben Blander rounding out the top 5. Hugh Leahy up to 6th. Strong run from him. Evan Wolf 7th. David Albin 8th. And Mike Anzaldi finishing 9th. So Pro 1500, it was Gustavo Raffles. Another outstanding drive from him ahead of Greg Gorski. Elaine Dursey rounding out the podium. Aurora Strauss in 4th from Palmer Miller. Kent Myers, David Flint, Dan Decker, Mark Allen and Richard Girosha. And in the Platinum class, Judd Miller coming home on top over Steve Jenks, Jason Plotke, Jim Booth, John Field, Scott Wagner, Jason Greenwood, Robert Rossi. Well, we'll go down and celebrate the victors in the winner's circle. What a race it's been. We've got one more this afternoon. And tune in again from wherever you are around the world. YouTube.com/Radical Motorsport. And check out radicalmotorsport.com for all this and latest and greatest from around the world of radical racing. And see how you can get involved, whether it's at the country club level, SCCA and NASA Racing, or of course stepping up to the full Radical Cup National Series like the Blue Marble Radical Cup. We'll see you back here later this afternoon for more action from the Blue Marble Radical Cup North America Series.